Welcome back, guys. Yesterday I put up a video on Pulumi versus Terraform. Today I thought I'd do Terraform versus Terraform. On the right, I got Terraform, and on the left, it's CDKTF. So CDK with Terraform, and that's a little different. I've already got CDKTF installed, so let's go ahead and do the scaffolding part. And I'm going to use local, which avoids Terraform Cloud, and it's going to use TypeScript as a language. I don't want to, nope. And for sure going to be AWS. If I want to use other providers, I can just go ahead and install it with npm, and that should be fine. This takes a little bit because node modules. Anyways, so here's an example of installing other providers. So if I needed Azure, Google, Docker, etc., null, I can go ahead and do that. So let's work on this explicitly. Let's take a look at what we got. All right. We need to make sure this is not going to bother us anymore. The ESLint issue. I don't know why it just does, like, nothing comes with ESLint. Do people not use ESLint? Maybe I'm just the only one. Who knows? All right. So if you remember correctly from yesterday, or the last video, the Pulumi versus Terraform video, we created our own class, and this looks god awful. Have proper 4 spaces, please, not 2 spaces. So this has its own class, as normally CDK does have their own classes, where we created our own class in Pulumi. So I still have that up. This was it right here. I made a few changes here and there, but it looks relatively the same. So we're going to move this out to its own lib directory, and I'm going to basically copy this, and we're going to make a class called company bucket and all that fun stuff. So let's do that. lib/s3, and then we will call it right. Okay. And we'll move this here, and we'll move the imports here. And that way, cool. All right, so now that we got everything all squared out, I'm going to rename this to company bucket. And we need to export that. And just call this company bucket. And it'll be all imported. Cool. There we go. So let's also call this my first stack. It's really just a constant. Yeah, it's stack because it's Terraform stack. And I'll explain what Terraform stack is a little bit later, and so on. So the first thing we want to do is we want to be able to, well, okay, so a few things we need to do. First, we need a provider. So I usually create the providers in the main. So I'll create the provider here. So if you wanted to say new AWS provider, and the construct app inherits construct, so we can say app, and just call this AWS, and that's it, right? Now, if I needed other providers, I'll create them here. But in my stack, if I needed other providers, I can pass them in as an argument, and then you can like, let's say that I'm creating something in AWS, and I need to pass in properties for GCP or something else. I'll pass those providers in as necessary. So right now, while we don't really need to do any of that, because we'll work with this provider here. But we also need a backend. Actually, I think I need this provider here. I'm sorry. I needed that here. I forgot. It works differently. So, and we change app, we change to this because it is a construct. So the other thing we need is a backend. So new S3 backend. And it's going to be, now this is where it's going to be app. Now you can have the backend in the construct itself or in the class. But why bother? Because then if you have to declare for each class, that's very, very repetitive. And so I'm just going to do it here. And so we need the properties. The bucket is, I created this bucket already. So CDK Terraform backends. I think that's what I named it. The key is going to be YouTube videos / CDKTF. And then you must have the region. Otherwise it fails, as I found out the hard way when I tried this out earlier. Okay, so that's the backend for everything that will be executed with CDKTF. So we don't need to worry about backend anymore. The provider is here, and it gets pushed up the line eventually. So we don't need to use the provider elsewhere other than here. So now let's go ahead and create our S3 bucket. So I can say const bucket is equal to S3 bucket. And notice the import here. So the import is actually coming from the provider lib S3 bucket, right? So we can actually, if we wanted to, just import everything from here and then just import directly. But just for the sake of the video, let's just do individual imports so you can see exactly what the structure looks like. So you're gonna need to pass in the construct and all right, new S3 bucket. Sorry, you need to pass in the construct. You need to give a logical ID. Hi mom logical ID. I'm having fun with that. And then there's the config. Now, if we had a different provider, right, a different AWS provider with a different set of credentials and so on, that we wanted to create for this bucket, we could pass that provider argument and it would be just for that provider. So we can have like multiple AWS accounts or multiple other types of resources in general. It doesn't have to be AWS accounts, and pass that provider in however we see fit. But since we're only going to be using the one provider, we don't really need to do that. It'll inherit that already. So let's just leave it alone. But similarly, how we did for Pulumi, bucket is actually for bucket name. So this is the one annoying part about CDKTF is that there's no description in any of these classes. So if you click here, which you won't be able to see in my case, but it will lead you to the Terraform property link. So bucket says an optional if omitted Terraform will assign a random unique name, etc., etc., etc. So let's go ahead and give it a name. And we don't really need, so ID is something that actually comes back to us, right? It's not a field that you'd want to set, at least I don't think. So please be aware that this field is automatically added and Terraform, yeah. So you don't necessarily need to set ID. And the other thing is we mess with was server-side configuration. In fact, we could take a directly look at Pulumi. It looks really the same. We could even copy this if we wanted to. We're not going to. Remember when I said that Pulumi uses Terraform providers? This is what I mean. So rule and bucket key enabled, and it's type Boolean, as you see it right here, type Boolean, or either resolvable or undefined. Undefined being the question mark. So we're going to say true. And apply by default, yes. These are the rules we're going to apply by default. And this is a string. And if I were to click this link, it's going to tell me the values are AES 256 or AWS :KMS. And we're going to say AWS :KMS. And the other one is a KMS master key ID. And this is where I'm going to have my properties, right? So, or arguments. So let's go ahead and create the interface, or you can use a type if you want to. You can use an interface, however you feel. I'm more used to an interface. So export interface company bucket args. Doesn't need to extend anything. Read only KMS key ID. And we'll just say it's a string and so on. And we'll get to the whole like conditional if what if the client doesn't provide the KMS key ID, then what? We'll get to that point, and we have to add that to our constructor here. So args is equal to company bucket args, right? So now we can say args dot KMS key ID, right? And if we wanted to, so now it's the other thing that we had over here is we had this output, and I've never actually figured out how to do the output. But let's figure out how to do the output. So let's remove that. And perhaps it's here. Maybe my editor can figure it out, actually. Let's find that out. Oh, look at that, Terraform output. Oh, I was close. Nice. So new Terraform output, this, do you need a construct? Yeah, you do need a construct. Bucket output. I can output, and then the config value is going to be bucket.id, right? So we'll say it's that, and that's it. So that's your standard thing, right? That's what we've more or less have here, except for the output, and there's no tags, but this is your provider. That's this provider right here. It's going to go ahead and inherit the region that I provide, or I can explicitly set it. If I wanted to do that, I can say, for example, region is US East 1, and that looks remarkably the same. The backend we actually have the backend in main over here, so that's gonna take over this whole execution, and we're just creating the bucket. So let's go ahead and provide this argument of KMS key ID. I will get the one from my account. Just bear with me just one quick second. Because why not? I mean, it's the default key that AWS provides anyways, so who cares? Whoa, I've copied way too much. There we go. Okay. So that is my KMS key ID. Right now, everything is all hunky-dory. Everything's happy. So now, if we were to do a CDK diff, not a plan, we should see something, right? So set my credentials, and I think it's called my first stack. My first stack. Let's see what this says. Now, there's a synthesize option, and I'll tell you exactly what that does in a little bit. But since I never ran like a formal Terraform in it, it never created the state file in my remote S3, so it automatically did that for me. And oh, look, argument is deprecated, so on and so on, but it'll work. And I should do something else. I'll use AWS S3 server-side encryption configuration resource instead. So there's a different resource that you can use to pass on these values rather than just using these values. So in the Pulumi side, they're going to need to update that at some point, but this is effectively the same output you would see in Terraform, and it's just in CDK. Now let's get to the conditionals. Okay. So let's say that this is a optional. And if it's an optional, then we might want to create our own KMS key. So if if not args dot KMS key ID, we want to say new, let's put const KMS key equals new KMS key. This hi KMS key, and then provide some, we don't really need to provide any particular thing, is we just need the actual key to be created, and we can take the let KMS key ID equal args dot KMS key, which means that it might be undefined, and if it is undefined by this check over here, then we're going to go ahead and create our KMS key, and now we can say KMS key, we can override the existing KMS key ID value with KMS key dot ID, right? And now it's going to say, oh, it's never used, but it is going to be used down here, right? KMS key ID. Now, there's a slight difference here between this class that we wrote and the Pulumi class that we wrote. And I want to note that explicitly. So in the Pulumi class, we had to do this KMS key ID apply. It's like they call it a lift, where we lift the resource and get its underlying value. We may not need to do that with CDKTF because it does a synthesize version. It's like, hey, in this, this will need to be lifted, so it does that for you in the synthesis template. Again, I'll show you that in a little bit. So now if we were to run a CDK diff, we should now also see the KMS key ID. Maybe. Oh, actually, no, sorry, hold on. We're actually passing a value. So maybe now? Args is possibly undefined. Yes, args is possibly undefined. We'll just pass in an empty value for the time being. That's unclean, super unclean. Don't do that, but for the sake of the video, let's just go ahead and do that. Okay, so 2 to add. So that's a good news. All right, so, and as you can see here, there's this KMS master key ID, and it's known after apply. We're also creating this KMS key, hi mom KMS key, hi mom logical ID is the bucket, and it automatically knew we didn't need to do this whole lift part over here. The synthesize template did take care of that for us. So that would be how we can go forward with using CDKTF and using very, very little product knowledge and using straight up language knowledge, right? So language knowledge and an LSP. That's what gave me the little helper to see what properties are available for the resource. And that's all we needed, right? So that's a short intro to CDKTF. And comparing the two, I prefer CDKTF to Pulumi. Shocker, actually. But overall, actually, I prefer CDKTF over all of the other ones compared to regular Terraform, compared to Pulumi, compared to CDKTF. I prefer CDKTF. The documentation I wish was a lot better. Like I like being able to do, say Shift K, and then it tells me like a little blurb. It says create a new, and then it just at link. Why? Like I know this is an AWS resource, but it's also you see this elsewhere too. So it creates a new thing. Great. Okay. Awesome. This one right here, it does something. Go to this link, figure, and then look at it. I don't really want to do that. I wish they would just add those documentation as helpers here. Like they could have just take those blurbs and put them here, but they didn't. I don't know why they didn't do that. Quite unfortunate, but it does work. You can use it, and it's great. You can go through the little your LSP, go through all each of these things, and find what you need and look at the links, and it's not too difficult to figure out. Anyways, that's this video. I'll talk to you guys in a little bit. I think I'm going to stick more to this. I'm going to go more into creating constructs and being able to play with Terraform, or sorry, CDKTF, and just like how it's so much more different compared to regular TypeScript, and doing conditionals and loops and so on. So expect that for the next few videos. Thanks, guys. Bye.